Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. I'll be your MC today for Success Live. We have a lineup of incredible speakers. We'll be talking to you about different aspects of success. And I'm going to start by sharing some ideas as well. So imagine with me, a mother walks into her room to her son, and she starts shaking him. Says, "You got to wake up. You got to wake up. You got to go to school." He says, "I don't want to go to school." "No, you got to go to school." "Why don't you want to go to school?" "Well, there's about 100 teachers there. None of them like me. And there's probably 3,000 students, not one of them likes me. Give me one good reason I should wake up and go to school." He said, "I'll give you two. Number one, you're 45 years old. Number two, you're the principal. Now get up and go to school." Now I share that because I started out my career as a high school teacher in an all-black school in Chicago. And I learned very quickly that my students, more than the history that I was teaching, needed self-esteem. They didn't believe in themselves. They didn't believe they could achieve their goals, etc. And so I took a workshop at a place called the W. Clement and Jesse V. Stone Foundation. And W. Clement Stone was a self-made multimillionaire. He was worth $600 million. And I studied with him for a while. And eventually I ended up working for the foundation. And my first intake interview with W. Clement Stone, he asked me a couple of questions. First one was, "Do you take 100% responsibility for your life?" And I said, "I think so." He said, "Son, it's a yes or no answer." I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Do you ever blame anyone for anything?" "Yes, I do." "You ever complain about anything?" "Yes, I've done that." "Do you ever make excuses?" "Yeah." "Then you don't take 100% responsibility." I said, "Oh." He said, "So now on, you're going to act as if you are responsible for everything that happens to you. You've either created it, promoted it, or allowed it to happen." And I said, "Okay." Then he asked me, "Do you watch television?" I said, "Yes." He said, "How many hours a day?" I said, 3. I thought for a minute. Good Morning America, the news when I got home, maybe it's the night show. And he said, "I want you to cut out 1 hour. If you cut out 1 hour of TV every day, you can have 365 additional hours every year." I said, "Wow." He said, "That's the equivalent of 9.5 weeks of 40-hour work weeks. That gives you a 14-month year to be more successful." So anyway, I started taking more responsibility. And then I learned this formula. It was called E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And what I learned was everything that we want, that we complain about, is the outcomes. We're not the weight we want to be. We don't have as much money as we want. We don't feel as happy as we want to be. We're not producing the results we want to be. Those are all results. Those are outcomes. And what creates an outcome is your response to the events that are occurring in the world. And we all know 2 twin brothers. One becomes an alcoholic, one becomes a successful business person. How does that happen? Same event, they went to the same school, had the same parents, all that kind of stuff, but they made different decisions. Now, there's only 3 responses you can have to anything in life. Number 1, your thoughts, the things you think, the beliefs you have, the stories you tell yourself. Number 2, the images, what you visualize in your mind. Now, we create our fears by imagining bad things in the future. We can equally create positive events in the future, which then motivates us. And the third thing is your behavior, what you say and do, or what you don't say and don't do. Those are the only 3 things you have control over. So basically, that's the essence of this success thing. If I want to have more outcomes, happier, more successful, more money, more impact, whatever, I have to change my responses. So what I did when I learned this was say, okay, who is living the life that I want to live? Who's healthy? Who has great relationships? Who's making a lot of money? Who's having impact in the world, making a difference? And I studied them. I've read over 3,000 books in my life. I've taken at least hundreds of seminars, listened to hundreds of TED Talks, figuring they know how to do it, so I'm going to learn. How do they think? What do they do? What habits do they have? What do they say? What do they read? Who do they hang out with? And so basically, that's the essence of success, is our ability to change our responses to the way things are. Now, I could give you a $1,000 bonus. Some of you would go to Las Vegas, blow it. Outcome, a year later, you don't have any increased net worth. Someone else invests it. A year later, they have $1,000, maybe $600, $1,060, whatever, because they did a different choice. So basically, what are the choices? So this is what I learned. Number 1, you have to have a clear goal. What most people say, a burning desire. What is it you want? You can't get from here to there unless you know what you want. It's like your GPS in your car. You know where you are, you have to know the destination. And so basically we have to decide, what is it you want? Most people have never done that. Talk to kids in college today. What do you want to be when you grow up? They're not sure. A lot of them want to be influencers. I don't think that's the best thing to do, but that's a lot of what they're doing right now. So the idea is, what's my vision for my ideal life? And then we've got to turn that into specific goals. A goal is something you want that's measurable in time and space. So if I have a goal to be wealthy, that's not really a goal. I don't know what wealthy is. My subconscious can't create results from that. So I have to define that. What does it mean? So I want to talk to a financial planner. I want to find out, how much money do I need when I retire to live the life I want? How much money do I need to live the lifestyle I want right now? And set a specific goal. And then once I've set that goal, measurable in time and space, how much by when? So I want to have, let's say, $30 million in the bank by the year 2035, which then produces enough interest income for me to live the lifestyle I want to live. Now, once I set a goal, you have to do this. You have to write it down. Why do we write it down? There's actually research. This guy's a professor down at Georgia State University and actually Virginia Tech. And what he said was, he did research. And he found out that people that write down their goals actually earn 9 times more money in their life than people who don't. Simply writing it down, or something about writing it down and then reviewing it at least once a year. You could write it down, put it in a drawer, come back, review it, and you get the same results. So write it down. The next thing is, you have to look, how do we accelerate this? How do we get the mind really excited? Motivation. So we create an affirmation. An affirmation affirms that I've already achieved the goal. So we're creating a structural tension in the brain. I'm so happy and grateful that I'm now vacationing in Hawaii. But the fact is, I'm in Los Angeles. Now, if I say that over and over, it creates a structure of tension in the brain. And the brain doesn't like dissonance, so it wants to solve it. Only 2 ways it can do that. Number 1, give up the goal. That's what a lot of people do. Number 2, figure out how to get me to Hawaii. So if I do that long enough, that structural tension activates my subconscious to come up with a how. When I set a goal, I don't need to know how. That's where most people stop. I can't see how I could do that. You don't need to. Just know what the what is that you want, affirm it, visualize it. So how do we visualize? We close our eyes and we visualize having the thing we want as if it's already occurring in the present moment. And then we hear the sounds we would hear and we feel the feelings we would feel. So someone says, well, I don't know what it would feel like to drive a Mercedes-Benz. Great, go down to the Mercedes-Benz dealer, do a test drive. I don't know what it would be like to stay at the Ritz-Carlton, the presidential suite. Go down there, say you're gonna have a wedding, you'd like to see the presidential suite. They take you up there, you now have a vision of that. So the reality is we have to do the visualization. You think about all the people we call visionaries. You know, Walt Disney, he visualized Epcot Center, he visualized Disneyland, he visualized all that stuff. And then he's got people to draw the pictures of it, made a blueprint of it, and then began to live it. So the idea is we want to have a visual. So I want you all to think for a moment now, something I call a breakthrough goal. Imagine 1 year from now, we're meeting here, and you've achieved something that is blow your mind. You say, wow, that was the day that my life changed. Now, breakthrough goal is not a little 10% increase. It's double your income, have a best-selling book, you know, travel around the world, have your own TV show, whatever it might be. So all of you are here today. You see all the speakers and all the people. If you had a breakthrough goal, something you would achieve by this date 1 year from now, what would it be? So take a moment to think about that. If you could have anything you want. And then think about, what would the affirmation be? And I use a model from Bob Proctor. I'm so happy and grateful that I now what? So I'm so happy and grateful that I'm now earning $350,000 a year. I'm so happy and grateful that I now have a book on the New York Times list. So wouldn't you be happy? Wouldn't you be grateful? And you say it as if it's already happened, again, creating that structural tension. The next thing we have to do is we do that twice a day, in the morning and at night before we go to bed. So at night, our unconscious is working on coming up with solutions. And eventually you'll start to see things in the reality that were always there that can help you get to where you want to go that you never saw before. So I set a goal. W. Clement Stone said, set a goal that's so big that if you achieve it, it'll blow your mind. And it'll only be achievable because of what you learned from me. So I set a goal to make $100,000. At that time, my income was $8,000 a year. I was a high school teacher. And I was only a half-time teacher because I was still going to graduate school. And so I set this goal, $100,000. I did not know how I was going to do that. Now, I had a book come out the next year, 100 Ways to Enhance Self-Concept in the Classroom. I got 25 cents royalty every time that book sold. It was $6.95 for the book. Now, I didn't know how I was going to get that money, But I started visualizing every day, and I put a $100,000 bill on my ceiling. I wake up in the morning, I look up, $100,000 bill. Close my eyes, I'm so happy and grateful I'm now earning $100,000 a year for my best-selling book. And then I would visualize it. I would get up, go take a shower. 30 days into it, I'm in the shower, and I have a $100,000 idea. If I sold 400,000 copies of my book, I'd make $100,000. I didn't know how to do that, but at least I had a strategy now. So what I do, I start going around, doing talks, selling my book in the back of the room, and then I realized if I have my book in a magazine or something like that, Reader's Digest, I thought if I get an article in Reader's Digest, 8 million people will read that. So I wrote an article, and I called them up to see if I could get an ad. And I said, what's the cost to put an ad? They said, well, what do you want to do? I said, it should be a full-page ad, right-hand side, costs more, but that's where people's eyes goes. And you better let us write the copy because you don't know what you're doing. And said, it's got to be in there 6 times in a row before people actually notice it. So I said, okay. And I hear this adding machine going, that'll be $108,000. I said, I don't have that kind of money. And even if I did, I'm losing $8,000 in this process. It's not going to work. So then I wrote the article, I sent it in, they didn't publish it. But I kept visualizing being in some kind of magazine. I get down to New York, I'm speaking at the college, Hunter College, it's a book group of 600 teachers. Woman comes up at the end of that talk, says, I'd like to interview you. I said, okay, who for? She said, the National Enquirer, 12 million readers weekly. I went, deal. So I got in there, people start buying the book, and then my wife said, you know, we should be selling the book like a bookstore. We'd make $3 a book, that's the retail markup. Now we only got to sell 33,000 books. So we started a online, or it wasn't online, but a book sales, and we're sending out brochures, people were buying it. And my wife said, you know, we should sell other people's stuff too. Long story short, after 6 months, we got 8-page catalog, 32 products on self-esteem. We're selling lots of stuff. At the end of the year, I did not make $100,000. I made $92,328. We were not upset. We were excited. My wife said, you think it'll work for $1 million? I said, I don't know. I think it will. Let's try it. So we did the same thing, $1 million bill, all this kind of stuff. And about 3 years later, I got a check from my publisher for the first Chicken Soup book. It was $1,138,000. And so I would tell you this stuff works. Now, just last 2 things. You have to take action. You're going to start getting creative ideas, but you got to act on them. You've all heard of the law of attraction. The last 6 letters of attraction is A-C-T-I-O-N. The last 6 letters of the word satisfaction are A-C-T-I-O-N. Enough action creates satisfaction. And my friend John Ashraf came up with this word, calls it the law of Goya. The law of Goya. I said, John, what does Goya mean? He says, get off your ass. Go do the work you have to do. I said, okay, I love that. Now, does all action work? No. Sometimes you do what we call fail. You learn from that, right? You get feedback. Now, I want to encourage you to ask for feedback. Think about this. This is one of the most useful questions I ever learned. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the quality of this speech, this interaction, this deal we just did, me as a father, me as a husband? Anything less than a 10 gets a follow-up question. What would it take to make it a 10? That's how we get better. Why don't most people ask that question? Because they're afraid of what they're going to hear. I always ask my wife that question at the end of the week. I've gotten as low as a 4. I said, what would it take to make it a 10? Don't leave dishes in the sink. Come to bed at least with me at least 4 nights a week. Have you heard of foreplay? She said. I said, yeah, I've heard of foreplay. She said, well, we want to revisit that idea because our sex had gotten a little bit mechanical. But anyway, I ask that question a lot of my staff, of my clients, et cetera. And then you have to, take in the feedback. Don't get resistant. Don't get mad at the feedback. A lot of people do that. And then you keep recycling until you get the result you want. Perseverance, never ever give up. Chicken Soup for the Soul was rejected by 144 publishers. If I'd stopped at 100 and given up, I would not be standing here in front of you today. So the reality is, if you keep on keeping on and responding to the feedback, making corrections. Someone said to me, the next time you get a no, ask the person, what would have to happen for you to say yes? And I asked the publisher that. He said, I need to know I could sell 20,000 copies. So my friend Mark and I, we went around, every talk we gave, we put a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11. I promised to buy blank number of copies of Chicken Soup for the Soul when it comes out. When we had 20,000 commitments, we took it down to Florida, put banker's box on his desk. He said, okay, we'll do it. And that was the beginning of I've made millions of dollars from Chicken Soup for the Soul. So here's the last thing I'd like you to do. Think of one thing that you could do before you go to bed tonight that would take you a little step toward your breakthrough goal. We call that a micro action. Micro action. And the other thing I want to end with is this. Bill Gates has a wonderful quote. He said, most people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. So again, start to do what you're doing. I call it the rule of 5. Do 5 things every day. Write 5 pages, call 5 clients, make 5 phone calls, reach out to 5 people on your mailing list and ask them how it's going. Whatever it takes, 5 things a day. If you do that, you're going to have amazing success. So thank you very much. That's what I call the success system that never fails if you choose to do it. Thank you.